Hi, everybody. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs, located here in Kansas City. I'm the host of the Sports Psychology Hour radio show that airs every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. Central Time on Sports Radio 810 WHB. You can listen to the shows live at 810WHB.com. I've been on the air for 33 years here in Kansas City doing our radio show, and we're now doing podcasts where you can, as we're going to do tonight, where you can uh, go to my website, winnersunlimited.com. Excuse me. Check out the podcast tab, and we've got close to 10 years of podcasts on there. And I've been a sports psychologist. I'll be starting my 44th year of work next Tuesday, the day after Labor Day. I'm one of the first trained sports psychologists in the country. I've been doing it a long time. And I love doing this show because on our Facebook Live shows here, I interview athletes, coaches, mental health professionals about the mental side of sports, the issues that are going on in youth sports, high school sports, college sports, professional sports, you name it. We get into this. And tonight we're fortunate to have Antonio Rocha with us. Antonio, thanks for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. So let's get started. Tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all, as we get started here.
Absolutely. So yeah, my name is Antonio Rocha. I am from Providence, Rhode Island. I got my bachelor's from Hudson University in psychology, where I was a college football student athlete up in Bangor, Maine. Then I went on to graduate school at Springfield College, where I was able to graduate with my master's in athletic counseling. And now I'm currently working as the assistant director of student support services at Rhode Island College, where I do a lot of advising with student athletes and helping them out get to graduation and choosing the right classes and helping them realize their transferable skills.
So let me ask you right off the bat, how'd you get into that? I mean, you're a college football player. How did you end up going into this realm? You could have gone into a lot of other things. Why'd you do this?
Absolutely. So honestly, like I was a below average student in high school. I honestly really only cared about playing football. That was like the number one thing on my mind. And then I was lucky enough to get opportunity to continue playing at the Division III level up at Hudson. And honestly, when I went to college, I felt like my major was football. Like it literally it was all that I cared about. That was like my main motivation. Um, but like I said, I was a below average student when I was in high school. And when I got to college, one of my main goals was making the all academic team, because in college it's a much more value at school. It's a lot of money. So I applied myself a lot more, and I was really involved on campus. Worked in the one-on-one classes, being a peer mentor. Was a student athlete mentor as well. Worked at study halls. Yeah, really involved on campus. I was a vice president of the United Students Association. So being involved on campus helped me like realize like that I have some other things to offer this world besides my athletic gifts. And then also I had a bad wrist injury my senior year of football that kind of caused me to shift my mindset. And that's when I decided to actually go to grad school. And
Well,
then
let me interrupt you here for a second. So
yeah.
I'm really intrigued with this because you mentioned a couple times you were a below average student in high school, yet you go on to college and you all of a sudden found academics, and now you've gone on, going to graduate school and moving on from there. What changed? What happened? Was there a coach? Was there a mentor? Was there a professor that maybe opened your eyes up to the educational part of school, or outside of just being a football player?
Yeah, so I think that a big part of it was leaving my hometown of Providence, Rhode Island, and going far, well, not far away in the grand scheme of things, but 5 hours away in Bangor, Maine, where I didn't know a soul, and it was a predominantly white area, and that's literally something that wasn't used to growing up in the inner city of Providence, and just the fact of living on campus just kind of always had me in the, I guess, academic mindset, and I felt as though like I'm so far away from home, might as well apply myself. So literally, when I was in college, was the first time I seriously applied myself, and when it came to school.
Did you have a mentor, a professor, a coach, a teacher who maybe gave you some incentive to really focus on that more so than just football?
Not really an incentive, but my defensive coordinator, Still, his name is Grant Caserta. He's just a brilliant guy. He just knows everything about about football. Just knows everything. And like he was my D coordinator all 4 years, and he was all academic every single year that he was in college as well. And it wasn't more like, he did. He was my specific mentor, like for me, that gave me specific incentives or things like that. It was kind of just like he would just lead him by example. Like I saw how brilliant he was, how he was able to articulate himself, and I just wanted to be that. So I kind of tried to model myself in that manner.
So how'd you go into the world of counseling? What got you into that direction? Because obviously you're from an educational standpoint, you were learning about a lot of different things than obviously that you did in high school, focusing on football. Now you're looking at life and other issues. How'd you get into that? And what about the mental health aspect for you? Where did that fit in for things?
Absolutely. So growing up, I just always was just interested in psychology and how like the mind works and human nature and why humans behave the way that they do. So I always had that in my mind, and that's something that was the first thing that I actually was like interested in learning. Like it wasn't work to do while in school, so I always had the idea of majoring in psychology when I went to college. Like that's my major, and most schools offer that major. So, and honestly, I was really, really focused on football. But they had psychology, great, that's my major. So yeah, studying psychology was always interesting for me. So that's kind of how I got into counseling. And then
Let me interrupt you here real quick.
yeah, for sure.
Was there something specific when you're starting to read about psychology? There's so many facets of it that have intrigued me, which is why I got into it. But was there something maybe that sort of clicked with you as an athlete that, this makes a little sense to me?
Not specifically as an athlete, but learning about Freud really like piqued my interest, like in my psychology 101 course, because his studies about the subconscious really got me. I'm like, whoa, and like the visual of the iceberg, and like just the tip of the iceberg is the conscious, and then the subconscious is everything below that, and how much that influences our decisions and behaviors and actions. That really was like, oh, this isn't work learning this. This is something that I can apply to everything in my life. And then when it came to sports, I always was like, I loved running around. I love being active. I love playing sports, and I was always positively reinforced since I was a child, like a really young child, about my athletic ability and what I can do. So that kind of I noticed that. I just always noticed that. Like when I do something good playing sports, always positively reinforced, as opposed to in academics.
So when you graduated, you went on to pursue this area of work. What motivated you to do that? What was the instigator, maybe the real, was there a key thing that you thought about, wow, I'd like to help other people figure stuff out? I mean, was there something that went on for you personally that made a difference with that?
Yes, like I mentioned earlier, like so I had a really bad wrist injury in my senior year of college football, and it came while I was like in my prime, like physical prime, literally during the best game I've had in my life. Sack, forced fumble recovery, multiple tackles for loss. I literally felt like I was in that flow state in that game when this happened, and it turned out that that initially when I got the X-rays, they didn't see any fractures or issues in my wrist, and it was indeed like fractured and broken. And it wasn't until when I came home at the end of the semester when I got it looked at by my doctor, and that's when they told me what the issue was, and I had to have surgery immediately. So that made me like I need to, I really, and it put me in a dark place for a long time, because I had all these plans of continuing to playing after school, which was like always my goal and dream in life. So
You wanted to play professionally.
Yeah. That was always my dream, my goal. Like I said, when I got to school, my major was football. Like it was like all or nothing, and it's kind of like that with a lot of football players specifically, or with a lot of athletes in general. It's kind of like that all or nothing mindset, and that's 100% what I had. So when that wrist injury happened, and obviously because I essentially had one hand, like I wasn't starting anymore. But I'm like, I'm all for the team. Like, I'm not taking a redshirt year or anything like that. And we didn't know that it was broken. So I was doing like physical therapy every day, trying to get better. So yeah, that put me in a dark place for a while, man. And that's when I realized, like, when I started to work myself out of it, when I got better and developing that mind body connection again, deciding to go to grad school, I realized like that is what I want to do. I want to help other student athletes out of their dark moments when playing sport, and realize that they're more than just an athlete.
So, were there counselors, therapists, psychologists at your school to help you work through that, or is it pretty much just something you did on your own?
Yeah, no, we didn't have any of those resources at all. I went to a smaller D3 school, so no psychologists on hand.
What
No.
year did you graduate?
I graduated class of 2020, but
Okay,
my
so
last year
just
of
recent.
football was 2018 fall
Okay,
season. That was my senior year of football.
so if you had someone there to work with you on that, which is what you're now doing, how much of a benefit could that have offered you and helped you out with? What could that have done for you?
Oh man, it would have been everything. Luckily I feel as though like I was blessed with a very positive mindset. Like naturally, that's where my mind kind of like turns to, like naturally, and it's not like that for a lot of people. So if I had like someone to talk to about what I'm going through, someone to kind of help support me along the way, I would have felt as though like I would have understood my value a little bit more, understood that like I'm more than just an athlete. I bring more to the table. Um, and it just so happened that I kind of got like recruited to go to grad school. So it was like similar to when I was in high school, recruited to play in college. But I was getting recruited in another way. Um, but for everyone, they don't have these type of experiences or opportunities. So that's really why I wanted to get into this field and make a difference.
Was that the first major injury you had playing football?
Yeah.
So here you are, a senior in college. You've been pretty healthy, basically healthy your whole career, and now here it is, and basically your career's over because of this injury. So how did that affect you emotionally, psychologically? What did that do for you when something like that happens? And because I want to lead into what you're doing with the athletes you talk to now, because that's a pretty traumatic thing, especially when you've got aspirations to play at a higher level, and that's basically taken from you, not because of anything you did, but because of an injury you got. So
Yeah.
how did you handle that, and how did you work through that?
Um, I tried like because there were it really was the team, like the team that I had around me, my support system, while I was out in Bangor, Maine, because obviously I'm away from my family. um and it was a team. Like I'm a really team oriented, team first kind of guy, and just being around the team, even though I wasn't playing. My roommate, who's been my roommate since our freshman year when we moved in together, we also played football, and then everyone that I lived in the house with me played football. Everyone was very supportive there for me because they felt it. Like we've all been together all 4 years now. I'm dealing with this. Um, Damn, that is really like a really good question, because I don't know how I made it through. I had support of my friends around me. I was involved on campus, so I had a couple professors that I expressed myself to, and they were supportive of me as well, and other transferable skills I had, and just tried to build off those.
You mentioned your one coach that's left a big impact on you. I have a lot of sayings in all these years I've been working. One is that a good coach is a good communicator, but a great coach is a good listener.
Absolutely.
Can you reflect on that from your perspective?
Yeah. Coach Caserta was always there anytime I needed him. Before the injury, after the injury, he was very supportive. Like when I was, and also our head coach, Coach Price, he was always. Oh, they were both always very very supportive of me. Um, I had a problem, which is it's I had not a problem, but an obstacle, a challenge that I'm trying my best to get better at and overcome, of asking for help when I need it, which is it's sometime a issue for me. I try my best to like get through it by myself. And then what that's another thing that this injury taught me is to lean on my support system, ask for help when I need it. Talking to my professors on campus, talking to my coaches, talking to my teammates. But my coaches were always there for me, always available.
So you had a fear, if I'm hearing you correctly, of sharing your insecurities about all this initially. But then
Absolutely.
then you started opening up about it, it really helped you get through it. So if we look at that then in the work you're doing now, how has that made an impact on you in a positive way to help you now when you're working with these student athletes? Because you know, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I'm one of the first trained sports psychologists in the country. I've been doing this since county grad school since the late 1970s,
Hmm.
and I was the first sports psychologist at the University of Kansas back in 1981 when I started working with just for the track teams, which expanded to the athletic department eventually. But nobody had heard of sports psychology back then, and in fact, when I interviewed at the Olympic Training Center driving home in August 1981, the assistant head of sports medicine said, "We don't need any of you PhD types people here telling us what's wrong with our athletes." It was looked upon, this is 40 something years ago, as a sign of weakness. But I think now we're seeing, especially with what happened with the Olympics, with all the discussions about mental health and all the talks about the sports psychology benefits that the therapists were helping, sports psychologists were helping all these athletes from all these countries. It wasn't just here. You're
Hmm.
seeing it all over the place. That I've always said athletes are people. You're a human being. I'm a human being. We've got emotions, feelings. Just because you're a superior athlete in terms of being able to play football doesn't mean you still don't have feelings, emotions, and all these types of things you got to deal with. So, has that helped you now when you work with these young people, these college students, to understand some of the pitfalls and stressors that they have to confront?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that my identity as a black man also puts a little bit more emphasis on that, because especially in um, in the field of psychology, in the field of higher ed, in the field of counseling, um, there aren't as many people from my demographic. So my me explaining to them and sharing the importance of mental health and taking care of yourself and recognizing that you do have those feelings, you do have those insecurities, and it's okay to have them, and it's okay to share them. um, is really huge, because many people from my demographic might not have heard that from someone like me. And
Do you get pushback from some of the African American students you work with about that? Oh, come on, I don't need to talk about that. I don't need to do that. That's being weak, man. I'm strong. I'm tough. Do you get that sometimes?
in the beginning, in
Yeah,
the
right.
beginning,
You're
in the
smiling.
beginning,
I can see you've heard that a lot.
I definitely have heard that a lot. I've
So
heard that before.
how do okay, so let me interrupt you here. How do you get them to change their perspective? How do you get them to realize, oh man, this is an issue?
Yeah, I show them the examples from when they are dealing with this, when these emotions and these feelings, and how it does affect them in their performance on the field and in their performance in the classroom. And then after they are able to share it, I always try to build that rapport with them, continuously trying to talk them up to get them to share a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And it always those sayings like, "Oh, I didn't look at it that way. I never had these conversations before." And then the results end up speaking for themselves, because the students share that they're feeling a little bit less of a burden, and then and the results speak for itself in the classroom, and how
I
they're feeling in their sport.
I bring this up in these interviews that I have all the time. about social media. And I work with a number of professional athletes. I'm the team psychologist for the Kansas City Current, our NWSL women's pro soccer team here. I work with a number of members of the Kansas City Chiefs over the years. One very prominent player right now, who I've told him, we've worked together for 4 years, and one of the first things I told him was get off social media during the season. Don't be on there, because if you make a mistake, if you do something wrong, you're going to get reamed all over the place. And after the Super Bowl, which, by the way, the Chiefs won this last 2 years in a row, say that, he came up to me at the end of the game, and he told me right there, he was very happy. He said, I want to tell you something. One of the first things you ever told me was get off social media. And that's been one of the best things I ever did, because I don't listen to all that stuff during the season. I let somebody else monitor my site. I don't even get on there. And I have found, the importance of that, and the perfect example of that to me for professional athletes, and really this filters down to the collegiate level as well, was when the Chiefs beat Buffalo in the playoffs. At the end of the game, Buffalo's field goal kicker, Tyler Bass, missed it was about a 39, 40-yard field goal that would have tied the game towards the end of the game. Within 2 days, he was getting death threats, and he had to get off all his social media accounts, which, when you think about that, he missed a kick. He didn't hurt anybody. He didn't ruin, he felt as bad as anybody because he missed it, I'm sure. But to get death threats because you missed that. So tell me what are some of the pitfalls and obstacles with social media that you see with college athletes today?
Yeah, it's
assuming you agree with me on that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And this one thing that I tell my students, athletes and non-athlete students, to try your best to limit your social media intake 100%, because it's like it kind of almost forces you to like compare. You see what's going on with someone else. You see their lifestyle, what they've got going on, and it just the art of comparing. It's like kind of hard not to compare when you're always on social media, seeing what this person's doing, that person's doing, and all it does when you compare, all it does is just lead to disappointment. Maybe not feeling as good about yourself as you would if you weren't on social media. And a big part of it, when you're not on social media, that's more time and energy that you're putting towards yourself, or have the opportunity to put towards yourself, and bettering yourself and getting closer to achieving your goals. So it's huge. It's huge.
What are some of the symptoms that you see with collegiate athletes of extra stress and depression and anxiety, maybe, that you pick up on when someone comes in and talks to you? What are some of the symptoms that you can pick up on?
Yeah, a lot of it is like not sleeping as much, procrastinating on just about everything, and also just like having like a lot of negative thoughts, not just about their sport, but a lot of negative thoughts just in general, about family, about life, about the future. And then when I start hearing those things, that's when it's time to like have a different conversation as towards like how do we limit those thoughts.
So what would you say to someone when they bring that up?
I would ask them about like their background, like what's kind of been going on, like their day to day. Has anything changed? And really trying to build that rapport to get towards like the root of how why they're having these thoughts and these feelings. And sometimes it is social media, and being too involved on social media, or things that are going on with their peers and socially.
One of the big words that I use with my clients is the word balance. And the balance to me doesn't mean everything's equal. It means there's a time and place for everything.
Absolutely.
Studies and academics may take a priority over your training sometimes. Sometimes you have to know when. I know coaches aren't going to want to hear this, but sorry, sometimes you got to miss practice because you've got a big exam or you've got a big project due the next day, which sometimes that takes priority. And coaches always want their athletes at every practice participate, doing everything they want. But I also know there are a lot of coaches who understand, and that's where, to me, as I mentioned earlier, a good coach is a good communicator, but a great coach is a good listener. Meaning, understanding the stressors that if you've got a student athlete who's doing really well academically, but places their academics at the top of the level with everything, I think a good coach is going to recognize that with those athletes, and not that they want to miss practice, but if they feel that the stress, they need to do that to do some extra work, they let them go. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, for sure. I think that every athlete has every student athlete has like unique needs, and you kind of have to like meet them where they at, because every athlete is different. So, for example, if there's an athlete who's doing really well in sport, and then maybe they have like a research opportunity with a professor, and research is really important to them, and they might have to miss a practice. I think that it's important for that student to come to the realization, that this is an opportunity, once in a lifetime opportunity, and to relay that message to their coach with ample time. And like you said, if a great coach is a good listener, and that coach would take that into consideration, and should encourage them to take that research opportunity.
Before we wrap things up, let me ask this question, Antonio. What's perhaps the most common stressor or obstacle or roadblock that a lot of college athletes share with you about? If there's a theme, what would that be revolving around today?
I feel like the common stressor is, especially, I've worked in D3 sports at Western New England, at Springfield College, at Rhode Island College, and the big thing is the biggest thing is playing time, for them. It's playing time, and like having, and helping them realize that, you know there are other things that are also important in life. And when a lot of the student athletes that I've had a chance to encounter, they are putting their sport as a number one priority almost in their life. So when they're not getting that playing time, it's like the end of the world. It's the end of the world. The coach doesn't like me, and then it's almost like a downward spiral from there, if they aren't able to recognize the things that they can't control, and being holding themselves accountable for the things that they can control. So it's a lot about controllables that I've noticed, and a lot of it stems from playing time and learning how to balance the social life, the athletic life, the school life, especially when it's the first year students. But playing time, worrying about the controllables is the huge thing.
And like I always say, I think that's great advice. And as I always say, everyone who plays college sports was a star in high school.
Yeah,
Almost everybody was the star of their team, and now they're amongst a whole bunch of stars, including several, if you're a freshman, that are 3, 4, maybe even 5 years older than you. So there's that adjustment period, and it's a big change. And I always say anybody who plays college sports survive youth sports too. And
absolutely.
yeah, well, listen, Antonio, it's been a pleasure having you on tonight. If
Definitely.
anyone would like to get a hold of you, how can they reach you? I'm sure there are a lot of people who love to ask us some questions, because you've got some great comments here, and obviously I can see a great future for you ahead.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. If anyone would like to contact me, my email is Antonio dr2517 @gmail is the best way to contact me.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, and I can see
Absolutely.
good things are ahead for you, sir. You've got a good vision here, and I appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Have a good night.
Thank you. And if you've enjoyed our conversation, go to my website, winnersunlimited.com, click on the podcast tab, and you can hear this or all kinds of episodes. I've had close to 10 years of episodes on there. Also have my book, which is Just Let Them Play, Guiding Parents, Coaches, and Athletes Through Sports on my website. You can get that there. Take care of yourselves. Check out my radio show, Winners Sports Psychology Hour at 810WHB.com. Check out my website, winnersunlimited.com, where you can hear all these interviews that we've done. And it's especially great one.